wrap up our videos for cell signaling, signal transduction pathways. I finished up the last one slide past this, but just to remind you, we talked about steroid hormones, which are lipid soluble, and quick debrief, they are able to cross the cell membrane, and their receptors are inside the cell, intracellular receptors for those steroid hormones. Okay, and then they can diffuse, they bind their receptor inside the cell, and they diffuse into the nucleus, where they bind to the DNA, and they affect the production of proteins made from whatever little strip of DNA they're doing. Those are called transcription factors, and those affect long-term changes. Okay, the other big class we've been talking about is water-soluble hormones, which are dissolved in water. Okay, they cannot easily cross the membrane, so they need a receptor on the outside of the cell that they bind to. Okay, so examples again are epinephrine, and melatonin, and insulin. Okay, and we are going to talk about the epinephrine pathway here. Okay, so epinephrine is also known as adrenaline. Okay, this is what triggers our fight or flight response. It's also what comes in an EpiPen. If you have to carry an EpiPen for any kind of nut allergy, I'm sure you know that. And the job of epinephrine is to raise our blood glucose levels so that we can either run away as fast as possible or fight. So this is sort of a leftover evolutionary response, but we still use it, right? We still get our fight or flight response kicking in, okay? And it ends up causing a breakdown of glycogen so that our blood glucose levels get elevated and we have a quick burst of energy. All right, and the question is, how does this happen via signal transduction? All right, so I'm just going to quickly go through the pieces, or the people involved, not the people, the players involved in this epinephrine pathway, which is again is a water-soluble hormone signaling pathway. The first thing is called a G protein, okay, and G proteins are on the inside of the cell membrane, and they are inactivated when they are bound to GDP, okay, which is guanosine diphosphate. It's GTP is related very much to ATP. Okay, this is a little energy molecule. All right, but G protein, when it's got this GDP bound to it, it is inactive. Okay, and when it gets bound to GTP, it becomes activated. All right, it is associated with a G protein coupled receptor, which is this blue blob here. So this receptor is called G protein coupled because it's coupled with the G protein. Okay, and when we'll get into the whole process of how this works, but here's the spot where the signaling molecule would bind. Again, this is on the outside of the cell because water-soluble hormones cannot just diffuse across the cell. They need to have some way to send their message across. Okay? And then we have a player called protein kinase. This word kinase is an enzyme. It ends in ASE. And the job of a kinase is to transfer a phosphate group from an ATP to a protein. Okay, so this is a very, very common way that enzymes get activated in our cells, is by the addition of a phosphate group to them by way of a kinase. So protein kinases will transfer proteins in a big, long chain. So this is called a phosphorylation cascade because a protein will get added to an inactive molecule, activating it. Then another kinase will take it off of there and put it someplace else. And basically, it's just a cascade of transferring phosphates, which turns things on when they have the added phosphate and turns them off when they don't. All right, another important player in this whole pathway is called a second messenger. Okay, this is an ion or some small molecule that has a job of carrying the signal on inside the cell. The first messenger would be the epinephrine in this case, which is binding to the receptor. And the message gets passed, and then we have messengers further down the line, which are called second messengers. Okay, so in this case of the epinephrine pathway, cyclic AMP is a second messenger, okay, and that's a derivative of ATP. Okay, so the first messenger is epinephrine, and in this case, second messenger is cyclic AMP. All right, so here is an overview of the process of signaling using epinephrine, but this slide is very, very busy, so we're going to break it down. Okay, so the first thing that happens, our signaling molecule, which is epinephrine, binds to its receptor, which is this G protein coupled receptor, which is a transmembrane protein. Okay, that activates this G protein, which becomes active when it loses the GDP and allows it to bind to GTP. Okay, so the binding of epinephrine activates this G protein and allows it to bind GTP. All right, and when it's got GTP bound on it, that is considered activated. Then the activated G protein binds to an enzyme that will convert ATP into this second messenger, cyclic AMP. Okay, so that's we don't need to know the name of that enzyme. Adenyl cyclase is the enzyme that does that, but you do not need to know that, okay? Just know that epinephrine's our first messenger, binds to the receptor, which activates the transfer of GTP to GDP to GTP, okay? And the activated G protein causes this enzyme to convert ATP to the second messenger, cyclic AMP. All right, and then this cascade starts. Okay, so cyclic AMP activates a protein kinase, which will start transferring phosphates down the pathway. Okay, so before this protein kinase has been activated with cyclic AMP, it's inactive. Cyclic AMP turns it on. So now this kinase can transfer a phosphate. And actually what's happening is that the kinases are activating other kinases. Okay, so they're transferring, we have an enzyme whose job it is to transfer phosphates, and it's transferring phosphates from other kinases. Okay, the bottom line is that we have a big phosphorylation cascade, and at the bottom of it, we get an enzyme activated, glycogen phosphorylase, whose job it is to break down glycogen. So we have reached the point at which glucose is going to get released into our bloodstream, and we can now fight or run. Okay, so this glycogen is the polysaccharide, and it gets activated to start breaking down into glucose. Okay, and that's shown here. So here's a little picture of a little strip of glycogen, and now we've got a glucose broken off over here, and again, that would continue to happen. Okay, so now we've managed to release some glucose, and we can respond. Okay, so here's again this big overview. All right, epinephrine binds its receptor. This G protein gets activated with GTP. The activated G protein turns on the enzyme that produces cyclic AMP, which is the second messenger. That causes this phosphorylation cascade to start, which again is transferring phosphates down the road here, eventually activating glycogen phosphorylase, which will cause glycogen to break down into glucose. Okay, and we get an elevated level of blood glucose in our bodies. I wanted to make sure I didn't forget something. Okay, so there's some key points about these signal transduction pathways. There's always three main steps. Reception is step one. When the signaling molecule binds to its receptor, that's shown here. Transduction is step two. Okay, the bound receptor stimulates another molecule, stimulates another molecule, stimulates another molecule. So this was the whole phosphorylation cascade pathway. In that epinephrine example, this was when cyclic AMP started that kinase, and the other kinase, and the other kinase, etc. And then the third step is response. So in the case of epinephrine, the final response was that glucose gets released from glycogen, and our blood glucose levels go up, and we can do our thing. Okay? Another key point is that every step of the way amplifies the whole entire situation. So these numbers here, 1, 1, 20, 20, this tells us how many molecules are involved at each step. So if one epinephrine binds right here, we get one activated G protein, but then we get 20 cyclic AMPs, and then we get 20 activated kinases. Eventually, this all amplifies. It's an amplification pathway. We get 10,000 molecules of glucose released from one molecule of epinephrine binding. Okay, so that is a hugely important pathway. Fact. Okay, this whole signal right here gets amplified bigly every step of the way. Can't believe I just said bigly, but I did. I've never said that word before in my life. Okay? All right, so amplification is huge. Okay, and now here's a few more variations. One is using something called a tyrosine kinase receptor, and that is shown here. Okay, it's a two-partnership situation. The ligand binds to one part of it. That binding causes them to phosphorylate each other. The two parts of it start phosphorylating each other, and we get a fully activated kinase, which can start a signaling pathway. Okay? Another one is called an ion channel receptor, where the binding of a ligand causes an ion channel to open, allowing ions to go in or out of a cell. So here, this is closed. Here's our signaling molecule, which binds to this ligand-gated ion channel receptor, causing it to open. Now these ions can pass through it and initiate some cellular response. When the signaling molecule leaves the receptor, this gate will close and this pathway will end. Another one is called the inositol triphosphate pathway, and it uses IP3 and calcium as second messengers. So here's our signaling molecule again. Here's our G protein coupled receptor. When that signaling molecule binds, this becomes an activated G protein with GTP, and basically it's just signaling a different pathway using IP3 as a second messenger, and also calcium, but we're calling calcium a second messenger, but it's really more like a third messenger, because the IP3 signals this calcium channel to open, and then calcium leaves that part of the cell and signals various downstream responses. So we still call calcium a second messenger. And I guess that's it. Okay, awesome. Thank you.